Welcome to the Big Kickoff Sports Bar. Myself, Roy Shanahan, David Bugle, and Neil Dobbs. And it ended up Luxembourg 0, Ireland 3. And Dave, 3-0 is not a result that we see away from home that often, no matter who we play.
Oh, 1,000,000%. Well, in fairness, maybe the last two, because obviously we got 3 against Azerbaijan, so it'd be nice if this is the norm. But it kind of the result flatters us a little bit. But overall, who cares? A win is a win is a win. As I said on the other night, performance wasn't the be-all and end-all tonight. I just really wanted to win. First 10 minutes had a bit of a feel of it. Like, there was a nice atmosphere. It was a nice loud ground, considering it was only 9,500, and whether it was sensitive mics or not, but it just sounded loud and boisterous, and it was great. You could hear both sets of fans. So there was a bit of a feel for them to try and get their best ever qualifying campaign. Obviously, we wanted to save face. So first 10 minutes was a bit crazy, a bit wild and messy. But then slowly but surely it started to settle down a bit. But as I said, it's a bit of a cup final for in my mind. For me, it was just to kind of get a win in what I believe should be an important game for a bit of respect and saving face in the campaign. And they certainly did come the second half. So overall, you have to be happy with the win, end of story. And to get 3 goals to boot, and 3 good goals, you can't be overly people probably were sharpening the knives a little bit with the first hour, but you can't be overly critical. Like, there was some scruffy bits, but overall, happy days.
Yeah. So we're going to go into straight away, because Dave, you mentioned that the first hour we weren't good. I beg to differ a bit, because I think in the first half, while there was a couple of errors, I thought there was a lot more good football in the first half. I agree, in the first 20 minutes of the second half, we were all over the shop and anything could have possibly happened. It was end to end, more or less, and Ireland had probably the better of the chances in the first half. What upset you about the performance in the first half?
It's just too rushed. It was not too rushed. It was just, there was extra touches that just didn't need to be there. Extra passes that didn't need to be there. It was a bit overdone and overcooked at times. There was 1 or 2 where just the first time pass and we could probably get in, but I take the touch and go backwards. Or I'll take on it, like the centre halves held on to it a bit too long because they didn't really press us. And instead of getting it to people who can probably do a bit more on the ball, it was just a bit laboured, I found. And it's like, well, Kenny wants to play passing game, but this is pedestrian at times, I found. And if people say, oh, it's away from home, maybe so, but they were there to be got at and you could see it. But I think the front three wasn't quite the same with the press. Robinson kept coming into the centre, and then they had an out down the right-hand side. And McLean would then sprint too fast to get right up onto the toe, and it was too easy to get behind them a little bit. So we were able to let them out a little bit on a couple of occasions as well. But as I said, I just think there should have been a little bit quicker of the passing from time to time, and then a little bit too many touches on certain people where it's like, come on, lads, like, this is a game that we need to win. And I just felt a bit like I was getting a bit worried that it was just going to peter out, or we were going to let them back into it. But like, that's what I said. It was just scruffy and not as slick as I probably would have. I'm not asking them to be ticky-tacky constant or whatever, but there was once or twice where definitely Hendrick, it should have been a first-time pass, or you could see that the right pass was there, and then he'd take a touch and go backwards, and you're just scratching your head a little bit. And Egan definitely hung on to the ball. I found a lot in the first half when he had it. And then they tried to force 1 or 2 passes into the middle, and obviously you seen it in the second half there with Duffy. They should have finished it, and as simple as that. But like I said, what I didn't think it was the prettiest, and I thought it was very slow and a bit too safe for my liking.
Okay, James obviously jumped in here midway through what we were talking about. He said, "Get a grip, 3 goals, you muppet." So James, we're discussing the fact that we're delighted with the 3 goals. We're delighted with the way the game finished. Myself and Dave aren't necessarily agreeing on the first half performance. I don't think it's as poor as Dave has said it is, but Dave feels that there was a lot.
But I wouldn't necessarily say it was poor either, Shannon. I just thought, I'm not going to wax lyrical every time just to support him because I'm a fan of his, but I just thought we were scruffy, and I would have expected it just a little bit slicker from time to time, and it was just a little bit slow when I thought there was a quicker, more dangerous pass to be made. That's all, really.
Fair enough.
So, James.
when I'm looking at it though, Dave, I come to you now in a second, Neil. But when I look at it, I'm looking at the amount of chances that were created, and Ireland did create more chances than Luxembourg did. So while the game could be tightened up a lot more, I still think, and Ireland came out with 60%, I think, of possession of the ball. So we're looking at how we can make that step forward. You're looking at how we can be better than we are. Well, maybe I'm looking at it from the point of view that I thought we were comfortable enough in the first half, and maybe in that final third, which we'll come on to.
The final third was what was lacking, really. Like, Benny let us down once or twice, but I don't think he had great options either. But there was, like, that's what I'm saying, like, when it really came to the cutting edge. And now, in fairness, we talked about that on Thursday as well, with playmaking and centre midfielders, and sure, that'd be great if we had them. But there was just, that cutting edge was lacking, and you're kind of going, it was more, you could see where the potential deficiency that this team is. But at the same time, with the opposition and some of the areas that we were in, I was just hoping for a little bit more. But then again, they could have been tense. Like, as I said, like, I was hoping Kenny bigged up the game and made it serious for them. That was a must win for them. And maybe that's what it was as well. They were just a little bit tighter because of it, because for them, it was a must win game for a bit of pride and just to hammer home what they're doing, you know?
Yeah. We're getting there. I think we agree on that. And progress every game. I think we agree on that. Neil, when you look at that first half performance, it kind of was symbolic of what has been progressing over the last while. We've been getting more possession. We've looked a little bit more comfortable on the ball. We're not as nervous getting the ball out from the back, although I still think that when we're trying to pass the ball out from the back, sometimes we're overdoing it and causing ourselves problems. And that happened in the second half. But it's the final third, Neil, that we don't seem, and we kind of opened them up then at the end, which was great to see, but we'll talk about that tactical change in a minute. But in the first half, when he had those three up front, we didn't seem to have, is it a plan of what we're going to do when it hits that final third, or maybe it's just that it's going to take time?
I think we committed plenty of numbers forwards, and when we got up the field, there was plenty of times we had 4 or 5 guys in the box when it was cross coming in. I think Dave is hitting the nail on the head in the final third, just the final ball in. I've written down for Ogbenny, he got in a couple of really good positions, but his final delivery was kind of like it was rushed or scuffed across, where he just needed to float something in or whip it in, one or the other. But the positivity, and I have to be positive after a result like that, was that we created chances. We were comfortable in possession. I do agree at times we overplayed an extra pass, maybe from left to right when we could have gone a bit more direct. But funnily enough, I also think that I don't know whether Luxembourg paid us a little bit of respect tonight, that they didn't press us very high. There was a number of times where Egan had to step out of the back with the ball, where Duffy had to step out of the back with the ball. So maybe by playing the 3 and the 2, the 5 at the back as such, we were overly defensive in the first 15, maybe 20 minutes. And it took us a while, I think, to suss the game. The outlet for me came from Ogbenny's side. We seemed to get a lot of joy down there. I thought Doherty was very, very good, but it was building up to that third phase where the kind of killer ball was going to come from. We were critical of it on Thursday because we said that it wasn't good enough. And I kind of felt it was going to go the same way. But we just started to get beyond the final man. McLean had the beating of his man. Ogbenny definitely had the beating of his man. So as soon as we kind of settled down after, I thought maybe 15, 20 minutes, it was refreshing to watch us play like that away from home, where we'd so many touches and so much possession. And for a change, we were the ones in possession, whether maybe it wasn't, direct enough or attacking enough, at least we had the ball. Like, how many times you've sat down and watched an Ireland game over the years when we've gone away from home, be it Georgia, be it anybody, be it a team that you think you should be dominating possession, and we've surrendered possession literally from minute one. So from that point of view, I'm genuinely happy with how it went tonight, and I thought it was a comfortable enough watch, other than maybe a little period in the second half.
Neil, if you're Adam Ida, do you look over your shoulder now? He was coming up as he's the new man. He's going to be probably your centre forward. He's with Norwich, Premier League team. Now all of a sudden you've got the likes of Ogbenny, you've got Robinson who's on fire, Jason Knight comes on, the shape changes and Jason Knight comes on, and all of a sudden Adam Eade is thinking, Christ, I'm going to probably have to step up my game here if I want to be a starter from where it used to be.
Yeah, but you know what? Competition like that is healthy, right? And again, how many times have we were looking at Eden maybe 6 months ago, going, he needs to be better at holding up the ball. His overall play needs to improve. But he was a kind of a shining light that you thought to yourself, there's a player in there and someone that's going to bring his game on the more games he gets at international. And it is a big step up for him. But from an Ireland perspective, it's very, very healthy now that you have other options up there. Benny, I thought was brilliant tonight. I know they gave him a man of the match, but just everything he seemed to have, in his locker, he had pace, he had power, and then he had a finish, which, we've said a couple of times in the show, I worry a little bit about Adam Ida, that he doesn't maybe have a kind of a cutthroat finish that maybe, a striker needs at that level. But it's a healthy option to have, and it's a healthy for him that he's going to be pushed, because the last thing you need is for him to think, I'm going to get into the side all the time, have a guaranteed place. Maybe it will bring a little bit more out of his game. He's still young. He's still probably not playing week to week enough with Norwich, which is kind of, will scupper him long term. But again, from an Irish perspective, isn't it great now that Robinson is kind of taking that mantle, and that now Benny's after a period now of nowhere, in my opinion. And, he looks a player. He really looks a player.
Yeah. Dave, before we go on talking more about the game, is that the success of this campaign now from Stephen Kenny? The amount of new blooded players that he has brought into the squad?
It's part of it, but I think it's the fact that how we're playing is starting to work. Because that's just my opinion, because that's what I wanted to see us do, and I've wanted to see us do for years. This isn't just because I'm the biggest Kenny fan; it's because that's the way I want to see Ireland play more often. So I think it's the fact that it's starting to work, and they're starting to believe it, and they're playing with a bit of a smile. Look at some of the after the second and third goal, and they're all laughing and high fiving, and it's kind of like, it's nice to see, and a bit of positivity within the camp as well, and playing for each other, like, instead of kind of hitting shots from stupid angles because they're thinking of themselves. Like, Knight was very clever with his little back heel, and just all around there was some nice, decent play in the second half at times when it opened up for them. So for me, yes, the fact that there is players coming through is fantastic, and more of it. But it's the fact that the system and how they're playing, and they're all rowing behind it now and all getting into it, and it's starting to pay off. Not 100%. There's still a work in progress, but that for me is more important, because whoever's in it, they need to be playing like that. So whether it's 11 brand new players or 11 old school, it doesn't bother me in the slightest, as long as they're kind of playing it in that way. That's what I'm most happy about.
Yeah. Noel adds quite a bit here. It says, good win, but got a little bit lucky. Duffy could have been sent off in the first half, last man foul, and got a hand on his back, but dived on the ground for the disallowed goal. Not sure I agree with that one. Got lucky with that, because if that stood, it could have been a different game. Neil, do you think it was a bit of a dive, or do you think he went down a little easy? Either way, the referee seemed to be given the free no matter what, but he took an awful long time, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. It was the delay that killed you. Now, when you looked at it back in normal time, you were thinking to yourself, Duffy's after getting away with one there, because let's be honest, who the hell shrugs off Shane Duffy when he's attacking a header? There's just nobody. So he was clever. If that was a kind of a continental, you'd be, he used his experience. If that was an Italian, he used all his years of, playing there in Serie A and cheating his way out of a bloody free kick. So, you admire it in other cultures. Push, yeah. And listen, he did the right thing. He went down, he made a deal about it. And yeah, we got lucky in that regard, because if it wasn't given, you'd be going, Jesus, Duffy needs to be stronger there, and he shouldn't be just getting shrugged off the ball like that. But do you know what it is, Roy? You earn your own luck in football, I think, as well. And sometimes I think Duffy deserves that bit, because he's been colossal for the last couple of games for us, which is refreshing. The other side where I won't say we got lucky, there was a piece of magic when for the deflected save by Bazunu. That was an absolute incredible fingertip save. So look, you need stuff like that to go your way to win a match. You definitely need that stuff to go your way when you want to qualify for a tournament. Just ask Portugal how that worked out for them tonight. So sometimes you earn your luck, and sometimes you accumulate luck. But yeah, I'll take that in any way, shape or form. And I think Duffy deserves it.
Should we have got a penalty?
I was just going to say that, Dave. I have two of them here, penalty on Ida and top save from Bazunu. So the two of us just brought those two up. But penalty, Neil, yes, no?
Oh, yeah, I think it was a penalty. Definitely first contact was ahead of him on the contact, and the only thing your man could do was shrug him. But it's interesting, Roy, your man was on a yellow, wasn't he, before that? So if he had given the penalty, he might have to send him off as well. So you talk, if you look at it from a look perspective, they got out of jail on that one, and it didn't even go to VAR, which seemed a little bit strange.
Which was crazy. Didn't seem to want to use VAR tonight, which was mad. Dave, just on Bazunu, Neil has hinted at that one. World-class save. Absolutely unbelievable save. I said already, I see a potential world-class goalkeeper in him. Everything that he does is of quality. When I look at player goalkeepers in international football, I look at them in the Premier League and in Champions League. At the moment, for me, I look at him and I'm going, he is a top goalkeeper now. A top goalkeeper, albeit he's playing with Portsmouth. But if you're playing international football, you're in with the big boys one way or the other. For me, I can see him turn into a world-class and being one of our world-class players. That's not trying to put pressure on him or anything like that. That's just what I see in him. Do you see the same?
He definitely has the potential, but it's very important about his career path, because Ederson's not on the wrong side of his career, and he's in fine form, and it's a bit similar to Kelleher, but at least Bazunu is out playing every week. So it's going to be very interesting the next year or two, the choices he makes. Is he going to be happy to be the number 2 at one of the best teams in the world, or is he going to say, right, enough's enough, and I might have to take the pay cut, but I need to get out there playing and put myself on the map properly and really get in there and start mixing it with the bigger boys in the Premiership. So it's going to be interesting. Though he's only 19, so I'm not too concerned about him right this minute. I'm quite happy that he's playing week in, week out, and obviously he's getting some great experience playing with Ireland. But where it will be the choices he makes in the next year or two is going to decide that, to be honest, Roy. Because you look at Kelleher, is he too comfortable at Liverpool, and he's quite happy to be number 2 and earn a few quid there and be learning in the best? But he's going to be 25, 26, 27, and where is he going to go from there if he sticks around? So it's like that's where Bazunu is. I'm glad that he's out there playing, and that's the most important thing. But I wouldn't be rushing to jump up to Championship or Premier League just yet, because especially with goalkeepers, like it's ruthless. There's only one spot, and there's only 20 players that can play every week in the Premier League. So keep playing at the moment, because you're only 19. It's a long career at goalkeeper level. But I do agree with you, and I listened to his interview before the game, and it was just very refreshing, very cool and calm. 19-year-old with a very sensible head on his shoulders, and talking about the first Rovers game he was at when it was Ronaldo at Real Madrid, and like the part that a lot of Nigerian heritage players now form 5 in the team, and how important it is, and very much aware that it wasn't a big deal to him, but since he's been into the side and they've said it, he's realised that, and he's quite proud of it. And he was just saying the right things, very sensible and cool and calm for 19, and you probably have to have that for a goalkeeper at the end of the day. And he fluffed his lines on 1 or 2 passes a couple of matches ago, but overall, when it comes to with his hands and what have you, hasn't really let us down and fluffed his lines. Rui Patricio did an absolute shocker tonight, lads, an absolute shocker for their first goal, for Serbia's first goal. And it can happen to the best of them, but so far he looks very solid, very assured. Talks about distribution, and obviously he's learning from the best with Ederson. So he's ticking all the right boxes, but just the next year or two will be very important what he does personally. As long as he's still playing is the most important thing. But I'd hate to see him just sitting there thinking it's great being number 2 at the best team in the world. I hope he doesn't go down that route.
I think he pushed the move himself to Portsmouth. So I think he has a good vision, or someone is with him that's giving him good advice. That's good to see. Neil, your house obviously knows that the campaign is over. That Irish flag of yours seems to have dropped off there. Johnny O'Byrne says we can play out from the back because the keeper is so good with his feet, quality in the nets. That's a big thing, isn't it? Yeah. And it's something that is needed in football the way Stephen Kenny wants to play.
Sure, isn't that the case, right? I mean, look at the Premier League. You have Alisson, Ederson, they dictate the way you can allow your team to play. There's a reason why Ederson is one of the best in the game with the ball at his feet, because he's a Pep goalkeeping, the perfection of goalkeeping for Pep team. He can play from the back, he's cool, and then he can launch these 70-yarders onto a sixpence. So, for Ireland, you look at Bazunu there today. I know he'd 1 or 2 kind of wayward passes, but for his age, as Dave is saying, for his maturity to play in that position. He was picking balls out, and not wayward 90-yarders. He was picking out once or twice. He picked out Robinson in the midfield. Just a nice little dink in, and we keep possession. We get up the field. The one thing I'll say, just to follow on from Dave, and I do agree, where he needs to go next is going to be very critical in his thinking. But when you're an international goalkeeper, a top international goalkeeper, it raises your profile massively. Like, it really, really does. Even when we brought in Darren Randolph, Shay Given, when he broke into the team, when you're an international goalie, it's like it brings this extra level of confidence in a management team to bring you in. And hopefully he gains that and continues with it. But I tell you one thing, with Kelleher, Travers and Bazunu now, you have 3 youngsters learning their trade. Like, we're in safe hands, pardon the pun. But isn't it interesting that we're talking about Kelleher in that case is the same boat? I'll be interested what Klopp thinks about Kelleher, whether he thinks he needs to move for a year. And it's not to push Allison out of position. He's not allowed to move because they don't trust the number 3, which is Adrian. And they're worried that you might need him from time to time. But surely, as Dave is saying, you can't sustain that for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or you just become irrelevant. You become a number 2 and you will never become a number 1. So, whether Bazunu forced to move, at the moment, it's the right move because it's paying off. He's gone in ahead of Kelleher, which a lot of people might have fancied Kelleher ahead of him. But I think he's streets ahead of Kelleher now because of the performance he's putting in, the profile that he's raising, and now the saves that he's making. So for all 3 of them, listen, let's hope they all, keep going their career paths and developing, but they've big decisions to make in the next year or 2.
Yeah. Dave, first 20 minutes of the second half were as rocky as we've seen since we've sort of picked up from the last loss against Luxembourg. I don't think we have to put our finger on it. It happened. That's the way it was. But I thought that Stephen Kenny made a great move in changing his tactics, putting 2 up front, putting another body into midfield. They were cutting through us fairly easy, and bringing Knight on. Even Ronnie Whelan on the commentary was looking to see if Horahan had come on. But bringing Knight on shows that, what direction Stephen Kenny is looking.
Yeah, without trying to put the finger on it, as you said, I just think Luxembourg did come out with a little bit about them in the second half and just perked up a little bit. And obviously, as you said, getting through the midfield. So I was quite happy he put a third man in. But I think, and as I said it earlier on, I think the problem was it wasn't really a flat 3 of ours. Robinson kept coming into the middle. Now, I'm not criticising, by the way, but he just kept coming in to be beside Ida. And then it just made it a little bit easier for them to come out. And obviously they figured that out, and then we're getting through Hendrick and Cullen quite easy. So to put the third man in there was incredibly clever. The flag's down now, just in case anyone hasn't noticed.
Lads.
It's over. But I was quite happy when he did it because it made sense. And then he put the 2 more into the centre, and then obviously told the 2 lads, Doherty and McLean, to bomb on a bit more because they definitely looked a little bit more forward than they were the rest of the game, because obviously that was the directive. So everyone followed their orders. And it changed the game because we started to get back onto the ball again. And ironically, 2 things I said. Josh Cullen's dead balls has been shocking. Bang, 2 minutes later, we get a free kick and he scores. I gave out to Jeff Hendrick because just 10 seconds before the second goal, there was a fantastic ball to be made into whoever was coming in from the left. I was like, Jesus, when he just pulled the trigger. And then, of course, he puts a little dinky through ball into who was it for the...
Nice, was it?
Nice, yeah. And I was like, all right, fair enough. He must have heard me. So that was a bit all right. But yeah, but that's what you want to see. You want to see the manager paying attention to the game and realizing where it's going wrong and make a change to rectify it. And that's what he did. And to be honest, players will react to that going, yeah, this guy's clever. He knows his stuff, whether it's him or Barry or Andrews, whoever it may be. It doesn't matter. But players will go, yeah, the gaffer knows what he's talking about and he's watching the game, he's making changes and they're working. So more of his instructions and directions as the campaign or next games go on, they'll buy into it even more. So happy days.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll just talk about the goals. Obviously, the first one is a goal that we've seen time and time again, with Shane Duffy just getting onto an end of a header. Now, there was slating the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper didn't have the greatest of nights. He pulled off some good saves, but generally they were coming from his mistakes. So this one, not really his fault. A little flick on, beat him, and Duffy's at the back post. And just straight after that, I wrote, Final third of problem, goals coming from set pieces. It was my thoughts all the way through it, and when we scored, it was a set piece again, and it's Shane Duffy, and I was kind of getting worried about it, I suppose. But then after that, with that change, with Knight coming on, it changed the whole dynamic of the game, and it showed us that the movement that maybe the centre forward, if we can get a team that work as well as they did for those 2 goals, that having an out-and-out centre forward might not be the biggest concern.
Yeah, I think just in relation to centre forward, and we kind of hinted at Ida as well, it's a funny thing when you lose a centre forward, a target man, you stop playing the one ball to the target man, and all of a sudden we seem to have 3 options up front instead of having 1 option up front, and it just, the game just changed, and the lads were, Robinson was popping up between the centre back and full back, and then all of a sudden you looked up 5 minutes later and Knight overlapped him on the right and made that run, so that kind of opened up the game for us in that regard. Just in relation to set pieces, Roy, I mean, you look at international football now, it's riddled with set piece goals. Corners and free kicks are massive, and Ireland have had a brilliant return of set piece goals over the last probably since we've watched Ireland, but definitely in the last few years. And Duffy is an absolute tank. Him and Egan really go in hard to win that ball. So with the correct delivery, which we got, you're going to get them goals. So by all means, listen, score goal 2 and 3 when they come. They were lovely to watch. And it was great to see Ireland not sit back on the 1 and go for 2, and not sit back in the 2 and they went for 3. Like, that was actually refreshing. But always remember, the core, the set piece delivery and the way we puck them goals away with the big lads. Keep at that and keep fine-tuning that, because that's the difference sometimes between qualifying and not qualifying. Again, I'll refer to Portugal tonight. Mitrovic scored in the 90th minute. It was a beautiful ball in from Tadic, but it was a set-piece delivery, and Mitrovic headed it into the ground. So, they're not complaining. That's a brilliant way to score a goal, and they're on their way to the World Cup. So, don't forget kind of where we came from. By all means, cut the team open, play better football. But isn't it a good sign that we can score different type of goals, or we're proving that we can score a better flavour of goal, which again Ireland haven't done in some time.
Yeah, I don't think I was complaining. I was discussing the fact that we were only scoring goals from set pieces and nothing else. So it was refreshing to see that something was coming from somewhere else. But I totally agree with you that the set pieces, that we've got that down to a T. It's adding to that. Dave, what does the overall campaign tell us now? Because if you listen to Liam Brady, and I think Liam Brady's entitled to his opinion. I think a lot of people are discussing his opinion and not necessarily agreeing with it. I have to say I agree with parts of it and I disagree with parts of it. I agree with the part that we've had a poor campaign overall when you look at it, because we're joint 9 points with Luxembourg. We've just scraped into third. You can say, we made a third and that's our seeding, but really we scraped into that position. But there was so many different dynamics at the start of this campaign with COVID, people dropping out, bare bones of a team, changeover in the group, changeover in the style of play. There's a lot of change there that you couldn't just get up and going and running and be, it's a whole new style. So I think that Brady, on one hand, is correct. I also think that he's probably not correct in saying that, a black and white look at it, that it's a poor campaign and that's it. It's a poor campaign, I think we can agree, but there's so many different parts to this campaign that you have to look at, and then the progression is the biggest part towards the end.
Yeah, it was obvious they were going to start at that again tonight, and probably Peter Collins probably wanted to stoke it up a little bit because people probably wanted to hear it again so we could all talk about it. But to be honest, just very quickly on that, I think it's obvious he's not a fan, or he probably doesn't want it to work. I have a feeling he doesn't want it to work, and I think that's why
I get the same feeling, Dave. It's not that I think he's trying to break it down and analyse it. There's something that says to me that he doesn't really want it. Yeah, I agree there.
And I think the reason why obviously he doesn't want to say, I think he should go, or I want him sacked, because pundits don't like to do that, as we know. But I have a feeling, I'll give him till June in the hope that he hangs himself, or it goes tits up and he can go, say, told you. And I think that's the problem. It's starting to gather a bit of momentum. And I think it's his way of saying, I don't really want him to go, don't really want him, but if we give him another year, maybe he might mess up the Nations League, and then we can finally get rid of him. Because that's the feeling I got from the get-go. Because there's nothing positive from him. He kind of has to admit certain things, and I'll agree with Richie, but he doesn't really want to. I think it's killing him, and he just doesn't splurt it out that he doesn't like it, doesn't like him, or does. Very similar to probably what the Trapattoni's and O'Neill's at his work.
Why do you think that is, though? Because he was so prominent in backing Trapattoni all the time, even when he wasn't there. So why do you think? Because he was always someone who wanted to see Ireland play football. He was always one of those.
He was our best footballer himself. The irony of it.
So why do you think? What do you think is behind that?
Maybe it's because they'd be proven wrong. Because he was such a staunch supporter of Trapattoni, and as much as they got to a qualifier for one of the Euros, which the easy Euros, and I'm not being disrespectful, but they were easy, and we fell into that. We fell into third and got through a playoff. We made hard work of it. I think there's an element of that, because he was all staunch Trapattoni regardless of how he played, and I think that's the way he thinks Ireland, it's the one and only way, or it's more because I made me bed and he has to lie in it. And that's just the impression I feel, that there's an element that he doesn't want it to work, and hence why I think he wants them to stick it out till they make the decision, in the hope that it blows up in their face in the friendlies and then in the Nations League in June. So that's where I feel, because Richie Sadler made one or two good points, that it is our worst squad. And I'm not being disrespectful to the lads, but it is our weakest squad we've probably ever had in my lifetime. And he's trying something new. He's trying something more positive, and we've had 2 positive away wins against teams that we always struggle in. And if we get a win, it's the most ugliest 1-0 win ever, and we've won both of them. Azerbaijan didn't get, so 6-0 on aggregate, and that's what I want to see, because I'll say it again, lads, 80% of our matches are against teams around us and below and slightly above. So why can't we play positive football? Because most of the teams we play, we can beat them, most of them. And that's the irony of it. And it beggars belief, watching 10 or 12 years, watching our teams play so negatively, and it just drives me insane. And the fact that he's turning around now, and thankfully he's starting to beat the opposition around him. Yes, Luxembourg was an awful game, no matter who was there. It was a shocking result. But as far as I'm concerned, like you said, just to go back to it, an awful messy start with the COVID and people in and out. And then there was the whole crap where, was there an element of trying to shift them out with the whole video against the England friendly? There was loads of mitigating factors, and it started to get a bit nasty and dark. But thankfully now the clouds are lifting, the sun is shining, and the right crew are there, and the right players are there, and the players he wants to play are there. And he's starting to get a bit of a settled side now, still probably potentially 1 or 2 changes with more new, young up-and-coming players. But that's nothing but a positive, if you know what I mean. So that's what I would like to dwell on, and whether he signs a new contract or not right this minute, it doesn't bother me. I'm just happy it's him that's there at the moment, and it's starting to work.
Yeah. Noel says Ireland in complete transition, and Kenny will be judged on his next campaign. I'm in agreement there. Neil, just on the Brady thing, because one of his points the other night was that the results that Ireland have got under Stephen Kenny have been results that we should have won. Qatar, Andorra, Azerbaijan. I suppose he could put Luxembourg in there now. He says he haven't beaten any big teams. But Ireland, Neil, throughout these qualifying campaigns over the years, didn't beat these big teams. We went out against the likes of Italy, drew 1-1, 2-1. You go out against any of these top teams, Serbia's and stuff like that. We always got draws nearly to build on our campaign. We rarely got those big victories, and we always kind of beat the other teams that were around us to scrape into a playoff place. When was the last time that we qualified top of the group? So is he kind of trying to pluck things out of thin air there and make a case for himself?
Yeah, he's probably saying all the things that were maybe said when him and Trapp and all the lads were in the job, when we criticised him. And it's almost like, I think Dave's he's evading it there. He wants to be proved right, but he really doesn't want to be proved wrong as well. He doesn't want. I don't know whether he doesn't see Stephen Kenny as a big enough character or stature to be managing the country, and maybe that's something deep down he feels. Look, we should be in better hands. But the bottom line is, Roy, and I mean, no one can deny the last couple of games. We went away to Portugal, and played some of the best football we've played away from home in a long, long time. And as you say, we don't get results away from home. We look at a group at the start of a qualifying campaign and immediately go, well, let's try get second, let's try get third, and let's try not make a show of ourselves. And we never go out and beat the teams around us convincingly. We go out and we nick the 1-0. We go away from home, we play very pragmatic. Like, let's be honest, it was horrible watching for the guts of 2 to 3 campaigns under O'Neill and under Trapattoni. Even though we qualified under Trapattoni, we got a Euros out of it. But did anyone enjoy any of the rest of it? There was very, very few big nights where you went and said, I really enjoyed that Ireland game.
But Neil, sorry, I just got to cut across you. There was no real enjoyment in those qualifying campaigns that we got to the 2012 anyhow. We scraped through. We got lucky to get Estonia in the playoffs, who were the worst team in that draw. I remember walking around Tesco listening to the draw on the phone, begging for Estonia. And when I got out, I was jumping around the place because I knew that this was our only probably chance to get through. We scraped through that. And then we were diabolical when it came to the finals. So there's a big sort of hoo-ha about how well Trapattoni did, but did he?
No, like, I mean, Dave is saying there, it was probably the worst qualifying campaign of a Euros in 100 years. Like, there was nothing up against us, and we still struggled to get there. Now, I remember at the time, you would argue, I don't really care what kind of football we play. I want to reach a tournament. I want to reach a big tournament. So I think, right, you know what it is? The country itself has become sick of being told we're not good enough and we can't play football. We're just sick of it. And people are more educated these days. They don't have to listen to lads coming out and saying, and I don't give a crap if it's Trapattoni or Martin O'Neill or who it is. I'm sick of them coming out and telling us we're not good enough and we don't have any talent. I'm not saying we've got the talent of, you know, your Germanys and your Portugals and your Frances, but we've got players that can play ball, and they're proving it in the last few games. And we shouldn't be beaten with a stick to say this is the way you're going to play. Like, let's be honest, Roy, if Trapattoni had a missed qualification by a point, you would have turned around and said it was the worst, most horrifying campaign we've ever witnessed, bereft of football, bereft of belief, where you're getting your goalkeeper to launch 90-yard balls onto Shane Long, who got onto 1 out of 20 to 25. It was an abomination against football. You know, Eamon Dunphy got slaughtered for saying it about Jack Charlton in the 90s, but we were living it for 3 more decades. What's the story with that? So maybe there is that jealousy that's been carried forward. Maybe there's issues with people that they don't want Stephen Kenny to be the man. I'm not saying Stephen Kenny is the man, but I tell you one thing, he's building a team, at least at the moment, that's capable of playing football, that's capable of moving the ball, entertaining. And I'm hoping that this is the start of something good under him. And the next campaign and whatever Nations League, he continues the progress he's made. And that we're sitting here in a year's time saying he's the guy to lead us to the next campaign, and we're feeling a bit better about it.
You're not saying he's the man, but Johnny O'Byrne is. Ireland are back. Put the contract out. Put whatever money he wants. Ireland are back. I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's that much money in there, so he may not get the money part, but the contract. We're going to finish up on your thoughts. Dave, where does it go from here now? When would you give Stephen Kenny the contract, and would you give Stephen Kenny the contract?
Yes, I would, and whenever. Like, if you do it nice and early now, that's it. It's put to bed, and they can go off and concentrate. Players know who's going to be there next year. Everything's nice and settled. Everyone knows what's going on. More and more time now for the next, not till March, so you've got 4 months to study the form and see who else is out there. Is there any other new talent, or is there any other there's a 19-year-old playing for Mainz winger with Irish grandparents who's declaring and getting the passport now. So, let's get out there, cast the net. There might be 1 or 2, because we do need to build as best as we can. Yeah. But, the earlier the better, probably, so that they all know, this is it. Steady the ship and get into the next campaign and give it everything. We finished strong. Now let's keep that going. Obviously, are we in the 3rd division of the Nations League? Did we go down, or did we stay into the 2nd one? But whichever one it is, it doesn't matter. Get in there and get in the mix, because both nation leagues we've been shocking. So it'd be nice to get in there and get in the mix and try and get out of it. And I
think we're down. From what I remember,
we're down 1.
Exactly. I can't actually remember, but the feeling I have about it is that we are. That's terrible.
All the more reason to get in there, get stuck in, and give ourselves, because that's another way into the Euros as well. And imagine being already done and dusted before we even start the campaign like that. If the campaign doesn't go quite right, at least we're already there. But listen, get the job done, and now's the chance. So, yeah, get it done early so at least everyone knows this is it, this is the score. And, you know, I think enough has been done in the last 3 or 4 games because, geez, it was shocking at the very start. So to turn it around to finish third, it's not a miracle. It's not the greatest thing of all time, but very satisfying considering how disastrous it could have looked. So happy days. Let's get it done. I like what they're doing. The players are enjoying what they're doing, and it seems to be starting to take shape. And hopefully it will only get better. So yeah, get it done nice and early and get cracking.
Neil, it's a more enjoyable watch, but also the results are starting to match up to the enjoyable watch. Are you in agreement with Dave?
Yeah, I think. Look, I think he's earned or not, but I think he deserves another shot. One that he doesn't have the kind of background noise that he had at the start of this campaign. I think he's after breeding his own brand of player. I think he's after bringing them through and blooding them. I think we needed a campaign to do that, regardless. Let's be honest. There's names on the team sheet and on the bench that you just didn't know who to wear to years ago. So look, from that point of view, that's a success. One thing, and I think Dave hinted at it there, I listened to 3 interviews this week, which is Seamus Coleman, Robinson, and Shane Duffy, and they're backing the manager and they're backing his ideas, they're backing the squad. And for them to come out and do that, like, they weren't asked the question, oh, is Stephen Kenny a great coach? They were asked the question, how do you think things are developing? And they were very positive. So they didn't have to come out and be as positive as they were. So you need to trust these guys. These guys have been at the helm now for a number of years. Well, not Robinson, but definitely Seamus Coleman and definitely Duffy. So I would be trusting their voices and the way that they're talking about the squad. If you're to contrast that with a local Premier League, there's nobody coming out and backing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer right now. None of the players. The silence is deafening. So that's just another one from me to kind of say, you know what? Give him the contract, let him get it done. Like, let's be honest, contracts can be ripped up regardless, but I think he's earned another shot from scratch. If he can hit the ground running and continue like he's done the last 5 games, 6 games, hopefully things will turn a corner and he'll get on well.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. For what it's worth, I think he's turned it around. He's done a good job. The fact that he was under pressure at the start, there was so many different reasons. So I'm happy to.
Sorry, Roy, just to finish that, just because it came into my head when Neil was saying, like, every game he's been under pressure. 20 odd games now. Even tonight, it's Kenny in or Kenny out every single game. So maybe get it done now, so he might get 4 or 5 games off where nobody's debating about the effing thing, because it's like, that's got to be tough and very taxing.
Given that contract, a couple of games go bad, no one's questioning it. He's in no matter what. So, okay. All right, we're going to leave it there. Listen, thanks to everyone who tuned in tonight. Thanks for everyone who sent in their comments. And again, Dave and Neil, thank you as always.